No. Yeah. Ready? Call the committee meeting to order. Today is December 8th, 2021, 6 p.m. Council chambers. Start with pledge of allegiance. Under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Alderman Johnson. Alderman Fairwell.
Here.
Alderman Rita. Alderman Montoya.
Here.
Alderman McGee.
Present.
Alderman Carr.
Here.
Alderman Roll.
Here.
5 here.
Forum. Next presentation of journal proceedings. We need a motion to approve the committee of the minutes from October 13th, 2021. Second. On the question.
I'd like to request that we kind of make a change throughout these minutes in line with what we did earlier. In the minutes, there are numerous, references to the board meeting. I'd like to make a consistent that city council meeting.
13th is City Council Committee of the Whole.
Like, for instance, I'll take an example. Item number 3, especially right closely for COVID. Last sentence, request to be placed on the regular board meeting agenda for approval. I'd like to have the city council meeting for. Again, that's would be throughout the minutes of.
Any words of the board? City Council. Any other questions? Not close to the roll.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
5 ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries. Next is the motion to approve Committee of the Whole minutes from November 10th, 2021. Is there a motion? Alderman Roll, second by Alderman Carr on the question. Alderman Fairwell.
I do have a couple of corrections here. And I'd like to just say, I don't take any pleasure in making the corrections, and these are fairly minor ones. As I think everybody knows, I've been concerned about the errors that have been in these in the past. And my concern is twofold. One is because these should be correct. The second is because if there are errors here, it makes me wonder where else are there errors? Because I think this is an important document. So these do concern me, even though these are not major ones. And it's kind of like I had a client once, a good client, and we sent them a couple of invoices that had a number of errors in them. The first time he sent it back and said correct it. Second time he came back and said, Bill, don't make me read your invoices. I'm now reading the minutes very closely, and I hope that I won't feel the need to do so for a long time. Anyway, page 3, item number 1, employee healthcare insurance update. Third line, singular retiree needs to be retirees. Page 4, point number 12, the first paragraph, Alderman Rita stated, insert the word she will be collecting cereal. And I did bring my cereal. And the next paragraph, Alderman Roll, he also informed council of that or resident concerns.
Any other questions? Now please do the roll.
Alderman Fairwell.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee,
Aye.
Alderman Carr,
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
5 ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries. Next, public comment.
Good evening, Mayor Bellato. Good evening, City Council. I mean, what an incredible event Saturday was it not? I got to see little people, for example, that I haven't seen in years, and the tent with the crafts. All in all, somebody who's never experienced a Blue Island event quite like that. May I give you guys a major thumbs up? And thank you. Even having a marching band for a musician like me was quite exciting. So with that said, I would like to go ahead and address the City Council and you, Mayor, in regards to a website that I created recently called renterswelcome.com. The whole point of the website is to do background checks on landlords and property owners, to be able to help renters that get kind of jammed up with landlords that either, for example, might be illegally renting. There's illegal threats, like the word got out that I was doing this already, and one example would be somebody brought me their receipt. It showed rent was paid for November, but then they brought a sheet of paper, and at the top of that sheet of paper, it said, you have 24 hours to get out. A judgment has been filed against you, and if you don't get out in 24 hours, your stuff will all be thrown away. And I'm telling this person, don't do it, don't worry, here's your receipt. And that brings me to my quick list that I had to create because I thought I had another week. I didn't know you guys were meeting tonight, so I kind of just threw some stuff together. One of my concerns, and this is only because I'm absent of knowledge, is how aware is every single member of the police department here in Blue Island when it comes to eviction matters? A lot of times they're no big deal, right? They can be discussed, negotiated, and peacefully dealt with. Other times, however, you have landlords that already are illegally renting properties, and then it becomes a much more different dynamic. And again, I don't know, and I'm not trying to imply the police department has failed or anything, but I'm certainly strongly requesting from this council, especially starting in 22, to make a push for our police department to know how to help address, the tenant, landlord relationship here in Blue Island. Number two that I thought of was on the city website. What an amazing 24/7 place to drop stuff, right? And once you drop it, it's a done deal. You guys don't, not you guys, but the city doesn't have to do anything. The information is for us then, and it's our accountability to go seek it out. But if you guys don't have it there, kind of, again, it's not a fault thing. It's just things are very far apart when they can be closer through stronger communication. And I would like to request consideration, please, on the website to have a very specific section dedicated to one of the most crucial marketplaces here in our country today, and that's the rental marketplace, whether it's commercial or residential, irrelevant. We can't have empty, apartments or even businesses, right? So, I'd be able to put on the website what the city policy is, for example, how to get a certificate of occupation, things like that would really help, not just me as a renter, for example, although I am leaving very soon, but it also helps the landlord. It gives the landlord credibility, right? They can say, hey, I went to the city, I did what I was supposed to do, right? Kind of position. And then lastly, I think, since I'm so lucky to live in a country where I'm allowed to speak to you, amnesty would be the word that I want to throw out to all of you. Amnesty needs to happen for some of these landlords because many of them probably don't even know the laws. And why should they necessarily get raked over the coals, especially when their tenant-landlord relationship is healthy? Let's say a tenant is satisfied, right? The tenant is quite happy with what's going on, but the landlord, for just whatever reason, didn't get the inspection, right? If the city council took under consideration, and that was some of what I was hoping to have prepared next week, some sort of an amnesty program where if the landlord steps forward and says, look, guys, I screwed up. Just says, I screwed up. I did not get building inspections on these properties. I do have tenants in there. Perhaps there's a way where the tenant, if they're willing to join the landlord in this amnesty program, then maybe there's no disruption to the lease, and the landlord can abide by and live up to what the city expects landlords to do, which is to register their rental properties with the city, have the proper building inspections, And of course, issue that certificate of occupancy, because I myself lost everything to a house fire 20 years ago. Because a landlord in Springfield decided to ignore the laws, had somebody rewire my home improperly, and yeah, caught on fire. My kids had to move back up here, and I struggled for a while, and that's part of the passion that I bring to you tonight, and I thank you all very much for at least hearing me out. Thank you.
Could you repeat the name of the website you referenced at the top?
It's still under construction,
Oh.
but it's renterswelcome.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Now we'll move on to our mayor's report. I have, just keep it short. I think the parade was a great success. I want to thank Tom Hawley, Tom Mantel, and the rest of the committee that helps put that together every single year. And with the city's help, and hopefully more people get up and involved in the committee, we can make it bigger and better even next year. And I think this, by many accounts of the committee, this is the most entries we've ever had. And the weather was good. It wasn't too windy. And we have new decorations to offset it. Just everything fit into place. And again, I want to commend the committee that's involved in that for a job well done. That being said, I have a new fire chief, interim fire chief. Dan Reeder contacted me over Thanksgiving break that he was going to be leaving. And I met with David Haywood. He is our interim chief as of right now. And as the council already knows, we're all updated when this is going on. Hopefully down the road here, we can appoint a chief and fire chief, hopefully police chief and fire chief very near future once we get some stuff in the appropriations. So that's pretty much it. I'll keep it nice and short. Thank you. Next we have city administrator's report, liability insurance update.
Tom Morgan, City Administrator. Just a couple of things we're going to go through, trying not to take up too much time. And in that vein, liability insurance update. I actually meant to strike this from the agenda, but did not get the update to the attorney in time. There will be a liability insurance update with some hard numbers forthcoming, but I don't want to put cart before horse here. We're going to talk about some audit and tax levy issues as we head into setting up for appropriations, which is where we're going to have the hard number conversation about how expansive liability insurance we can afford, basically. I will say with a little bit of homework that we're doing on this right now, we're doing a lot of homework on it, but with a little bit of information. One of the real cost prohibitive parts of this that I think it's probably reasonable to say maybe scared away previous councils and previous administrations is that we're not in the insurance market. So we're not insured by anybody in any real sense. We have some very basic legal coverages, which we'll get into in the tax levy part. But the first year is going to be the hardest in this. The first year that we get into the marketplace and decide what package and extension of coverage of insurance that the city can afford, we're going to be paying the highest rates in the first year. So I think the best metaphor that was kind of given to me was the teenage driver situation. We're just into the marketplace. And so this first year, the numbers are going to be a little eye-popping. We might have to make some decisions. The council's going to have to make some decisions about one step at a time, I guess, in terms of the type of coverage that some of our neighboring municipalities have because they've been in the insurance marketplace for a long period of time versus us just entering in at a difficult time to do things like insure police departments, et cetera. So I'm just sort of kind of setting the stage for the reality of these are going to be some fairly eye-popping numbers, and we're going to have to figure out what water level we can be at here. So moving on from that, audit update in 2022 appropriation. Good news and bad news on that. I've been meeting with Alderman Roll from the finance liaison standpoint. As much as I would like to be presenting you a preliminary audit, the auditors are still kind of rounding third base here. We did clear some big hurdles that we had to get out of the way. The main one was just getting our accounting and our verifications down on how much federal money was spent through the CARES Act and through the federal relief that came in 2020. That had a whole set of potential audit triggers that we wanted to make very extra sure that we were clear of. We were able to verify all our information with the county after having to chase down several people, bureaucracy being what it is. But we're through that, we're clear we do not need any additional special audit or single audit on our federal money. So they're dotting i's and crossing t's now. My strong hope is, I don't want to overpromise here, but by December 14th, we should have a little more information. But realistically, we had set a goal of trying to get an appropriation together by January. The realistic update on that would be the schedule is aiming more towards probably February. And for those members who have been here before, we have to pass an appropriation. City has to pass an appropriation by the end of March. It was the end of March on there, but first fiscal quarter of the year. But we're still very much on path to do that. I think we're all eager to get into the numbers and get our priorities as a collective administration and council on the same page. But we want to make sure that we have all of our accurate information. And as we know, this is going to be the result of a lot of cleanup work. So there is more information forthcoming on that. Unfortunately, we do not have a finished audit right now. Well, like I said, we're rounding third on that and getting closer. And then to the meat of what I was going to talk about tonight, which is our tax levy. So as we talked about a couple times now previously, our tax levy, the city has to pass a tax levy and have it filed with the county by, I believe, the third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Third Tuesday in December.
That's
Yeah. So we have our first draft of the tax levy, of which a summary is in front of you right now. The summary is not 100. This is not final. This is a draft, but we don't expect a lot of significant movement within there. So just to I know for some of you this might be redundant, but we do have some new members on the council. We do have some new citywide officials. So I do think it's probably appropriate to go through at least some of this in a general 1,000-foot level, and then we will, if we need to do a deeper dive, you've had a chance to digest some of these numbers between now and the regular council meeting on the 14th. Our auditing firm, who is assisting with the drafting of this, is willing to join either in person or via Zoom, depending on their schedule, if we have more kind of deeper dive questions about this. But just to talk about levying in general. So this is our official ask to the county of what we need in terms of property tax revenue going into this fiscal year. Every levy is based, at least in part, on the previous fiscal year's levy. Okay, so there's a couple of important things to remember. This is what we're asking. There's a lot of formulaic stuff that happens at the county level after we make our request, after we pass our levy. This isn't the full amount we're going to get. Okay. So just know that as we're moving through this, is that these numbers, there's this set of numbers that is our request. Off of that request, there will be, like I said, a series of formulaic processes that happen. What churns out on the other end will be what we get in terms of from the county for property taxes. And so we divide that up into these categories that are in front of you to essentially make it clear what it is we're planning to utilize the money for. Let's talk for just real quick about the 4.99% increase. You'll see that on some of these funds. Overall, the total levy, we are keeping below 5% increase. And the reason is the 5% increase creates a threshold that is much more involves a series of public hearings. So this is pretty normal fare for municipalities to cap your overall increase at 4.9%.
You'll never probably get.
Pardon?
We never historically have gotten anywhere close to 4.9. They usually deflate it down to 1%.
And it will.
They've lowered the levy in the past. The county has that authority to run the property tax cap.
The mayor is absolutely correct. So in that vein, this again back to this is what we ask for, and then we get what churns out of the computer on the other side. So the overall audit, like I said, the overall levy we keep below 5%. There are some areas within this that we do go over 5%. I'm going to explain that here in a minute. The spreadsheet I gave you, like as a general summary, as you can see, there's some explanation work on the bottom corner in red that got cut off, but I'm going to explain it here. So the reallocation of additional funds that we make to the police pension levy and to the fire pension levy go above what we're statutorily required to do. Okay, Now, when you look at these numbers, you'll see pretty quickly, police and fire pension are a major driver of cost. And that's true of every municipality, every government, state, local, that's just, it's a common theme. So what we get are two sets of numbers as we build this levy. One is our statutory requirement, that is to say what the law says we have to give, okay? The other is what is a piece of actuarial advice, right? That's essentially based on a ramp of if we wanted to be solvent to a certain degree by 2040, okay? I can go on about the history of this for a long time, but what it boils down to is I would think about it not unlike a credit card. You have a minimum payment, you have to make your minimum payment, or if there's going to be issues. But if you're trying to be on a financially responsible pathway where you're paying down your debt over a period of time, then you're going to make more than that, okay? So the end result of that is that we do increase our police and fire pension payments to the actuarial requested amounts. All right, so what I would describe as the most fiscally responsible in the long term. Where that takes away from, obviously, is the immediate general fund, right? So there's money that if we were to only pay the statutorial amount, which would, again, not be the most fiscally prudent in the long term, then we would, be able to direct some more of that money to general fund. But it's the mayor's belief, this administration's belief, that especially in the first year of this new council and administration, we meet the actuarial amount and we make the full payment because it's the most fiscally responsible thing to do. So that's kind of the story on police, fire, pension, and why those are probably the two most important funds to think of in terms of where we're spending more or where we're asking for more in terms of revenue. So account by account, a lot of it's self-explanatory, but just to go through it real quick, debt service bonds, that money is to pay for the principal and interest on our bonds, on our debt service. Street and bridge, that money primarily, a lot of that gets absorbed up in things like electrical costs, utility costs for streetlights, things like that. Garbage pays for garbage, audit pays for audit, IMRF pays our IMRF retirement payments, all fairly self-explanatory. The police and fire, the pension funds separate, the police and fire and the corporate funds, those primarily are based off of salaries. So that's the city payroll for the most part. And then I'm sorry, I'm trying to read my own handwriting. So as we talked about, police and fire, we set to actuarial rates. The result of that is going to be more money going to police and fire pension and less to the general fund. But that is a conscious decision. We're doing that for fiscally responsible reasons. Beyond that, I don't think there's too much, not being a CPA, that I'm going to pretend to be an expert on it. I mean, this is not my first time going through a levy. And for several of you, you've seen these levies before. But that's the philosophy of how it's built this way. That is why the percentages are set that way. And I would say, in terms of how important this isn't a very flexible deadline. If we don't file this with the county by the end of the month, we don't get tax money, and that could be a real
There's only
interesting
two
thing.
things the city council has to do statutorily, otherwise we do not operate as a city. It's pass a levy by the end of December and pass a budget by the first quarter of fiscal year, which will be by the end of March. Those are two deadlines. Everything else is gray. These are two deadlines in any taxing body you have to approve. Now, just giving a little background, some of you that have been on the council with me, we have, given the last 3-4 years or so, we've gone the above and beyond amount to play the catch-up game. To give you a history, the fire and pension grossly underfunded. I think we were in the teens 4 or 5 years ago, and now we're close to what, 30%?
Between
30-some percent?
between 22 and 30%,
Yeah.
Depending on.
By doing this extra amount, it does help get us close to being in a better spot than we were 4 or 5 years ago. So when we talked about this, I said, in the grand scheme of things, not a lot of money for the whole total budget, but it's a lot to protect our pensions down the line. And I remember I stood up, I don't know how many council meetings, how many years ago, but we were the council. It was a hard thing to sell because I think we're more fighting the mayor's office than the alderman. I think most of the aldermen were in agreement to try to play the catch-up game. But it does take $100,000 out of the general fund for next year. But $100,000 now, you're playing catch-up, it's saving us probably millions down the road. So anyways, that's where my 2 cents came in, to continue what we're doing. Alderman?
Just one quick question. Thank you for putting this together. There's the line item for liability insurance doesn't increase. Would that constrain our ability to go ahead with a larger liability insurance policy?
So we have to levy based on our appropriation. I think what we're looking at here is it would be difficult for us to ask for, say, so I think that's, if my memory is correct, is that it's 70,000? Yeah. So obviously that's not going to pay for our liability insurance. We're going to have to, it would be very difficult for us to go to the county and say, we'd like to levy for 300,000 because we intend to do X. That's going to be a hard sell because it's an outlier. We're going to have to figure out what we can absorb in general funds. And then and then next year's levy, because when I say not being in the marketplace handicaps us, that's kind of exactly what I'm talking about.
So generally, I'll even simplify it even more. Whatever you levy for, you have to spend in that fund with the exception of the general fund and maybe the water.
Right.
If you levy $1 million in a fire pension, I can't move that money next year out of the fire pension. So we levy 300,000 and don't use it, we're stuck and that money is gone.
Okay. I think a lot of this, to piggyback off that, a lot of this becomes not easier, but more clear for us. This is a very clear enough the attic year, right? So I think a lot of this becomes more clear about how we want to approach, say, that specific line item going into 2023. So that said, we still intend to move on this in 2022.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the levy? Alderman Carr.
The problem is the column March next, allowable, you've got 77 million. What does that figure represent? If the column heads down,
I think the comma's off when I first glanced when I saw that.
Is it?
The comma's off.
Okay. Because the only other thing at that amount would be the total EAV of the entire city. So basically the combined value of every residential and commercial property that pays property taxes. Also, that's actually an important point. We build these things off of the concept, it's the only way you can do it. The concept of your EAV is your AV. Well, 100% of the property taxes aren't going to be collected. There's always a single percentage runoff on collections. So we have to factor that in as well.
Any other questions? If not, we'll have a cleaned up copy by Tuesday.
We're finalizing this based on these numbers. There is one additional aspect of this that was not completed fully, is that the library will be part of this, but
Yeah,
it's never been a terribly controversial part of the budget in the
The
past. I don't
library
think it
in
will
the
be in the
past
future.
100 years or so was its own taxing body. Something must have happened. They were part of the city. However, they levy separately,
tax
but part of the
to us.
city. So we're one of the few special scenarios like that. We don't have a separate elected library board and a separate levy. They levy with us, but on your tax bill, they are a separate amount on your tax bill. So it's a weird donut hole they fall in. So they make a recommendation to us and we submit it along with our.
And
Do we have to meet earlier prior to the meeting?
Oh, if you can see 4.9, you'd have to have a public hearing before the meeting, which I don't think the city's, you don't do that. The county's never gonna give you anything more than 5%.
to that end, though, we will do our best from a staff standpoint to not wait until the packet is prepared to get this information to you as quickly as possible, because it is a lot to digest. It is a lot to absorb.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
If not, move on to the clerk's report.
I just want to thank everybody that supported the Light Parade and the events prior to the Light Parade. I want to say it's probably the biggest parade since I've been involved. And also, it's definitely the biggest Kringle Mart. There was over 30 tables, so there's like 28 vendors. We had 2 tent vendors, and we had several activities for the children. And so activities were all free, so I think that was a great job, the Light Parade Committee. There's a coat drive Saturday, December 18th from 12 to 4. And there's a dinner. I believe Dexter Johnson is going to be a sponsor, I'm not sure if the sponsor or guest speaker. It's at 140th Street Community Center. So I'm not sure that's what it is. What flyer they said was called the rec center. They call it community center. Okay. And the center drive, the cereal drive is the last day is Friday. The clerk's office has several boxes in there already. I'd like to get a few more so you could drop off your cereal box to the clerk's office. Last but not least, there's going to be a second mailing for vehicle stickers. So if you did not buy your vehicle sticker, go do it now because you'll be getting another notice and it will be going up. Okay.
Thank you. Under city attorney's report, we have an ordinance, city of Blue Island, I think all five of these actually. Well, the first four are Howard was available for any comments or questions if needed. So get ready for that, Howard. They all came out of planning and zoning. So the first one, we have an ordinance, city of Blue Island, Cook County, Illinois, granting a special use permit for Alicia Battle to operate a Perfect Reflections Daycare LLC at 12128 Western Avenue. I believe this was the old print source. So there's a motion by Alderman Farnwell. Is there a second? Alderman Roll on the question. Not clerk, please do the roll.
Farewell.
Aye.
Alderman Rita.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries. Next, we have an ordinance for the city of Blue Island, Cook County, Illinois, granting a special use permit for Stephen Barnes to operate Chicagoland diesel sales at 13816 Harrison. I believe he's already operating part of his business there, and he's closing a business in Alsip and upgrading into Blue Island, I believe, Howard, correct? He's increasing his business in Blue Island. So we need a motion second, and then he'll be available for question. Alderman Farnwell makes a motion. Is there a second? Alderman Montoya on the question. Any question? Maybe not, Howard. So clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Farewell.
Aye.
Alderman Rita.
Aye.
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee.
Aye.
Alderman Carr.
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries. The next one is an ordinance, the city of Blue Island, Cook County, Illinois, amending the city zoning map to expand the uptown transit-oriented district. Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Roll, second by Alderman Farnwell. On the question.
It just occurred to me, we're voting on this, it's gonna come to city council?
Yeah.
That's fine, but it's gonna come, all right, fine. Just want to make sure I understood.
Can you just explain more in detail, please?
Sure. So the city of Blue Island is expanding the UTOD zone westward from Artesian on Vermont, and also between New and High Street up to the public library and the public garage parking lot behind the Moraine Valley Community College. The idea is to promote a higher density if possible. Most of these properties are already 2 families. There's a 6-family and a 4-family. So the density is there, but also to provide for some commercial activity in Vermont. One of the things this is going to benefit is the soon-to-be fire museum. By allowing it in the zone, then it's a special use as a community facility. So that's a plus for us. The second one is to finally have the former funeral home in Vermont being redeveloped, revitalized as a commercial residential property. So we have someone that already purchased the property and wants to do something further with it. But if you're in the R1 zone, you really don't have much flexibility. So the UTOD is also allowing for that to happen. And then the third one is me being a planner, long-term planning, the parking lot right behind the former Lyric Theater, soon to be Lyric Theater, Reincarnation, and the college is to allow for it if there might be down the road a public-private partnership to redevelop it as a possible building garage. We already have it in the zone. So it's, the person would have to, or the entity would have to go through the plan development process, the planning process to do it. But it's not allowed in an R1 zone, a parking garage. So again, and also moving the municipal buildings, i.e. the library, the police station, fire station, city hall, East Annex building, all into the UTOD to provide us with flexibilities. If down the road there's going to be a building expansion, there's no setback requirements. Height requirements are pretty liberal. And the post office is also going to fall into this UTOD zone. So the map amendment is basically revising 4 maps, the general zoning map, the large map that we always use, then 2 maps from the UTOD district map, which is going to be expanding. And then the other one is the zone A and B, which allows for mixture versus single family related homes. And then the 4th one is the sign overlay map, extending the UTOD for sign applications. So that's what we have. I have copies if you want to see the maps.
Any other questions? Sorry, I'm being a little more formal because they were planning and zoning. I just kicked in my city council way of making a motion, but yes, it all goes to the.
Yeah. So I'm in favor of this, and Howard's put together a really good package.
Thank you.
And has the biggest effect within the fourth ward, my ward. So I took a good look at it. And also I was on planning commission long ago when we put together the UTOD. So I'm a proponent of UTOD. And I did have a concern because this then encompassed some additional single family homes, which were originally notified. There was some doubt apparently for whatever reason why they didn't have to be notified. It was determined that they did. Howard went to the, got that process done. The homeowners have been notified. And I think there were no strong objections. So I think this is a good thing and we could go ahead.
Most people that are scared of what they don't know, it doesn't affect taxes or anything like that. That's the biggest concern I got a few calls. Once I said it wasn't affecting your property.
So here are the examples of the letter notification. I sent to everyone, the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals, and also to all the aldermen, the 4 people that did reach out to me before the Planning and Zoning meeting. I spoke with all 4 people, 1 through an email, 2 through telephone calls, and 1 at the building department. They had some questions about the taxing purposes, but we really don't get involved in that. What does it mean, UTOD, the density question, and stuff like that. All 4 people were invited to participate for that meeting, which was held last week, but no one showed up, so I guess they were fine.
Thank you, Howard.
And on that meeting, we had the librarian, the library director, Ann Wassener, who came and asked questions too. So she would have been the 5th one physically at the meeting.
Great. All right. Any other questions? If not, since I already started it, this one, let's do a roll call. Really quickly. Yeah, Alderman McGee.
In the drafting of the ordinance, I believe I read the word village in there. If you can possibly scan through the document, don't know exactly what page, but you scan through the document, and if there is a village in the packet, change it to city.
Like Alderman Farnwell, I have a firm stance on when it's something says a village. I don't return a harsh phone call. They call me a second time, I correct it. It seems to be working. If no other objections, do a roll call on this one.
Alderman Fairwell,
Aye.
Alderman Rita,
I,
Alderman Montoya.
Aye.
Alderman McGee,
Aye.
Alderman Carr,
Aye.
Alderman Rowe.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Thank you. So next one, we have an ordinance to the city of Blue Island, Illinois, amending the city zoning code to add definitions and designations as permitted or special uses in existing zoning districts. This is conjunction here. Howard, did you want to just open up and just briefly explain what this means?
Okay, so the first part is the definitions. Like everyone here knows, the definition could make or break a zoning case. So the idea was to add 3 new definitions, catering, truck terminal, and to revise the planned development. Currently, it's called planned unit development, which is more oriented towards residential development. But the planned development is going to incorporate residential, commercial, or mixed use development process. And then the 4th one was the elimination of integrated centers, because we don't have that anywhere else in the code. And it would have been very confusing for a person to apply for a special use for an integrated center when they could go through the plan development process. So that's that part, the definition. The other part the text amendment talks about is incorporating the maps from the map amendment, which I mentioned before, the 4 maps. And then the real meat of the bone here for this amendment is for the plan development to beef it up. So what I did was I looked at the Illinois Municipal League handbook for municipal officials. What was this organization? What is the state statutes that deals with plan development? So I looked at it really hard, and looked at it really well to beef up our plan development text. So some of the things that I recommended, which the city attorney reviewed it, and then planning and zoning reviewed it also, is to have a preliminary and a final meeting. So if we have an idea, someone wants to do, let's say, 1 building with multiple owners or multiple buildings on 1 property, commercial, residential, what have you, they're going to have to go through the process as a preliminary through planning, zoning, committee of the whole, city council. Everyone's going to have a say in it, so will the public. right? And then they have to go through the process again in the final, right? Because there might be some tweaking, some additions or subtraction of things being done. Another element that I put into plan development is the abutter notification process. I find that very important. You know, if there's a huge development that's occurring next to residential homes, these people should be notified through the mail system, similar to what I did with the map amendment. The buffer or the setback is 250 feet from the edge of the boundary of the proposed plan development. So that's going to be done on the cost of the developer. Now, as part of my review process, I'm going to review the ladder, you know, provide some guidance on what needs to be on the ladder and make sure, you know, like I've done here, document, count, photograph what's being done. Another thing that I asked for in the plan development was to beef up on some of the requirements, technical requirements, and to also expand on open space. So we looked at open space. Open space could mean two things. It could mean green space, park space, which could be shared by residential homes, or it could be green space that could be used for green infrastructure for capturing water. So we even gave percentages. You know, it depends on the environment, if it's built already or it's soon to be built. So there's going to be some of that, you know, give and take in part of the plan development. The green space could be a swimming pool. It's for, you know, communal housing. Let's say single family or two families, townhouses, or what have you. Or it could also mean a community center. So that green space can mean a lot of things. So that was another thing that we also looked at. And then finally, we also, what I wanted to do is ask for different types of studies. If this is going to be a business development process, then I want to see a business plan. I want to present it to the board, to the commission, and to have, you know, feedback on it. If it's going to be new homes, I need to know an impact studies, you know, school study fee, parking, traffic analysis. The current planned unit development does not require it. I usually ask for it if it's going to come through the process, but then I don't have any legal teeth to say, yes, it can be done. It should be done. So this is what this plan development process entails about. Now, in the physical meeting, Commissioner Jason Berry, my former predecessor, former planning director, mentioned about, you know, looking at, you know, what is the criteria for a person to apply for it. So I took that, you know, to challenge. I looked at 6 municipalities, looked at, you know, what is the type of language that they're using. Most of the municipalities I looked at, it's always a special use on the use table. Special use, special use, special use, depends on the zones, right? And also in the text amendment, we're also putting it as a special use under the UTOD for plan development, because currently there is not. And then the criteria is, will it be one building, two buildings will trigger the plan development? Will it be one building with multiple owners? Will it be multiple owners? So we're still working on that. That's going to be finagled next year. But we wanted to get something in place because we're going to probably have development that's going to go through the plan development process rather quickly. So we like to have something in place to protect the city.
Thank you, Howard, and again, you and Mr. Johnson and the committee have never seen this much stuff coming out of planning and zoning, which is good. We need to revise a lot of this stuff. So thank you again. Any other questions on this? Now we'll do a roll call.
Just one, Howard, again, thank you for this. As I know, you must have put a lot of work into it. You always do. And it's a lot of language. It's pretty technical. I know it's been, you've vetted this very thoroughly. I know so has the commission.
Yes.
Board. And so I guess I'm going to ask you an odd question because I don't generally trust everything that goes on in the city. I'm going to trust you on this. Is that okay? You've looked at this real carefully and you're super comfortable with it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And just to do it, you know, I'll look at it one more time before it goes to the city council.
Okay. Thank you.
I looked at it. I looked at it very intently. There are sections that I like to add, which wasn't in this draft, especially when there's going to be dedication of land to the city or to, let's say, homeowners association or condo association. We don't have that really beefed up in this sort of text, but this is something that I'm working on with the PZBA, and I'm going to be presenting it probably in a month or two. So there might be an amendment to this.
Thank you.
So I was just reminded, since we went down this path, I need a motion in a second. Motion by Alderman Fairwell, second by Alderman McGee. We're going to do a roll call.
Alderman Fairwell,
Aye.
Alderman Rita,
Aye.
Alderman Montoya, Alderman McGee,
Aye.
Alderman Carr,
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
6 ayes, Your Honor.
Motion carries to be on the council. Last one we have, and this is, it started between me and Alderman Johnson with the truck weight and also the bridge weight. And it turned into something that the police department was very interested in doing also. An ordinance of the city of Blue Island, Cook County, Illinois, amending the city code to restrict oversight and overweight travel on city roads. So it encompasses it all. I don't know if the attorney wanted to brief on this, or Chief, did you want to give your 2 cents in on this?
I'll just start. We drafted it based on review of different ordinances and what the city goals were. We then sent it to the police department to have them review and provide us with some input. It's still in draft form. You'll see there's certain highlighted areas on here to determine whether or not we want an annual permit, quarterly permit, if these weights work and, comply with what the police believe to be in the best interest for the city. There's a section for police passports and some of these ordinances we saw, which may or may not be necessary for the city. And then just some of the administrative things as to who's going to handle what.
This is not something we need to pass, anyway. It's the first draft.
Right.
Yes.
So I did reach out to our new truck enforcement officer. I showed him the proposed ordinance. He consulted with his instructors where he was certified, and they are absolutely 100% good with it. I myself, I can go both ways. I mean, however you want to do this, I'm good either way. But from our standpoint, there are no issues with this specific ordinance.
I just have one question, I guess, or I'm not sure if you mentioned the annual and quarterly permits. And just from a practical standpoint, we're talking here in some of these cases about some pretty beastly things.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, I guess I just wonder what circumstances would we want, a rocket launcher on an annual permit basis?
Well, we certainly wouldn't want that. Let's hope we don't have to.
Yeah.
do it.
So I just don't, I was just wondering about.
I know some of this stemmed from, I know at least one company reached out and said, we're looking to pay the annual truck permit to drive our trucks down 127th Street.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
we have nothing to charge them.
Yeah.
And that goes in conjunction. I know Alderman Johnson wanted to ticket trucks that were overweight, and we didn't have anything on the books. And I mentioned about Division Bridge.
Yes.
Away. So this kind of encompasses the authority to do everything. So
Right.
now we just have to be okay with the fees that are associated with this.
And I guess I wondered, looking at some of this, not to get specifics because you're still drafting it, but just to raise the question on these annual fees. And to me, a big part of this with a really heavy truck is about damage it's going to do to the infrastructure as well. And are the annual fees high enough to, compensate? I'm just asking, that's all. I don't know the answer.
Right. Well, I know that they are fined. If it's a 20,000 pound limit, they are fined for every pound
Right.
over the 20,000.
Yeah.
And it does get significant. There are cases where, $20,000-$30,000 bond was issued, and, we keep that truck until we get that money.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I believe it to be on the up and up here.
So, really quickly.
Alderman McGee.
So I see on the fee schedule, that it's, maximum length, maximum width, maximum height, gross weight, and then it's broken down into axles. Is there something like that is, I guess, would put it more in class versus the other class? I'm just noticing that.
Yes, no, I do need to apologize, Alderman. I don't have this specific answer for that, but I can't consult with the truck guy.
If I might offer, I do a lot of work in the transportation industry. And the issue of axles in a big truck like this is like, and I don't know the exact numbers, but like a bridge is built in 20-foot sections. And so if the whole truck weight comes to rest on the 20-foot section, it does a lot more damage than if the axles are spread out, and it can spread over 2 or 3 of those sections. So that's where and it's very complicated. There's all kinds of engineering stuff that goes behind this, and I'm assuming that's what I don't know. I don't have the depth of level of expertise to say, but I think that's the issue here with a lot of this stuff. It's just how the weight is distributed.
The distribution.
Okay.
Understandable. One last thing. as far as enforcement, what are we thinking as far as making, how feasible is it to make this more and more enforceable?
Well, we do, in January, we will have a designated traffic unit consisting of a designated truck enforcement officer. Typically, we're just going on the past practices of other municipalities that do this. Typically, the overweights are towards the end of the week. So he would be scheduled primarily at the end of the week, every week. So we've looked into this and we're fairly confident that it's going to be very beneficial to the city as a whole.
Another reason to do this is not something I can put in an ordinance. This probably will discourage big truck traffic on Vermont Street. And other things I've mentioned in the past, I can't be specific in an ordinance, but that's another benefit of it.
So this will get loaded into their GPS database, and they'll just see, there'll be a big red light when they try to come to Blue Island with this truck saying, don't go there, it's,
Unless it has to be picked up or dropped off in Blue Island, don't use this as a shortcut. And this might also help 127th Street with our truck traffic.
Because we're right in between.
Yes.
Expressways. Yeah. Okay,
Excellent. So there's a lot of, that's what Alderman Johnson is doing.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So we can send this to council. In the meantime, let's triple check. Who can we check this against? Maybe get another opinion and hopefully have something ready by Tuesday. And make any changes unless you guys see anything. And in the meantime, email the attorney.
Yeah, I think it was mostly administrative questions that I had, so I'll get together with the police department, we'll firm anything up. There will not be any significant changes.
Yeah, it seems like a good thing, and obviously if we find something on the road.
We've amended it. Start off the first year with chief's enforcement officer at the same time with something he can
Yeah,
reference.
of course.
So, all right, well, we'll finish this last one on there, the motion to put this motion Alderman Roll, second by Alderman Carr on the question. Clerk, please do the roll.
Alderman Fairwell,
Aye.
Alderman Frida, Alderman Montoya, Alderman McGee,
all right.
Alderman Carr,
Aye.
Alderman Roll.
Aye.
Under Alderman reports, Alderman Roll.
I said an addendum to the concerns for payroll that Alderman Fairwell had raised a couple of meetings prior. And that was in looking into overtime. The city, as of November 1st, had spent $540,482 on overtime. So on track probably for about $600,000 this year. That's $200,000 more than last year. So I think something for us to consider in looking at the appropriation. If you'd like a detailed breakdown of the overtime similar to the payroll, just reach out to me. That's some reports.
Thank you, Alderman. And I know in conjunction, I know the police department, I think I mentioned this Alderman Fairwell the other night too. The chief has some suggestions with the police department in specific to address overtiming in the police. I haven't had the conversation, nor I don't think Haywood would have the knowledge right away to give me his experience in the fire department. But I know Chief Farr has an idea that would greatly reduce that in police at least. And that'll be all discussed during the appropriations. So thank you. Any other Alderman reports? Alderman Fairwell?
Just want to recognize and thank the mayor and clerk for the great parade and good celebration, and particularly, as you did, to acknowledge former Alderman Tom Hawley's role in this. Tom was my co-alderman for a long time. Tom is a very hardworking, determined, intelligent man who always gets his way, and unfortunately has his heart in the right place. So it's a great event. Really appreciate all that Tom does. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. He's a quiet guy. You'll never know all the things he's done for the city. We all owe him, and the parade was a really good example of that.
Thank you. I know Alderman Carr, I think you have to hear him.
I just wanted to say happy birthday to our city clerk.
Oh, right?
Any other Alderman comments, questions? Mr. Alderman Rita?
I just wanted to reiterate regarding the Angels Touch cereal drive. Friday's the last day. If please donate a box of cereal, that would be fabulous. And also the life parade, everybody did a great job. Jim Postal, police department.
Thank you, Jim.
And everybody else ran. So thank you. It was a nice event.
Yes, I'm sorry, I neglected to thank Jim. His crew did a fantastic job. And I live on Greenwood where there was all kinds of activity lining up the parade. And I woke up Sunday morning very early. There were street sweepers running up and down that street. It was clean as a whistle. So thank you very much.
Just a quick comment. I think our interim police chief is doing a great job. And our new interim fire chief, I have a feeling he's going to do an excellent job as well. So, thank you.
Nothing else. We have our next meeting on Tuesday. The only thing that that might drag it a little longer, I know it's our last meeting of the year, is that we should review the executive session minutes, which the attorney's going to bring, and start approving those on a regular basis and not forget that they never happened. So I know we haven't done it before, but we're going to follow the rules. So nothing else. We need a motion to adjourn. Alvin Rita, second by Alvin Farnwell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Give me the recorder.